Good Sunday morning. My name is Jaden, Jefferson, and welcome to Community Focus. This week, confirmation hearings were held for Supreme Court nominee Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. I spoke with Rebecca Zietlow, Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at the University of Toledo, to hear her thoughts on the confirmation process and the significance of it.
It's a very significant historical event, right? To have the first African-American woman on our Supreme Court. We've only had two African-American justices on the Supreme Court in our history, Thurgood Marshall, and who was, of course, the legendary civil rights attorney before he went on the Supreme Court, and of course, Clarence Thomas, who is currently on the court. So Justice Jackson her nomination is historically significant because of her, because she is African-American and also because she is a woman. She will be only the second woman of color on the court after Sonia Sotomayor, and only the sixth woman to serve on the Supreme Court in all of our history. So for all those reasons, it's a very historic and exciting nomination.
Judge Jackson is very qualified for this position. She has a lot of prior experiences that she has on her resume.
She really does have an amazing amount of experience. First of all, she has a stellar education, going to Harvard University for college and Harvard Law School, one of the top law schools in the country. She has clerked for judges and justices at all levels, the trial court level, the appellate court level, and of course the Supreme Court with Justice Breyer. She has worked in private law firms and private corporate law firms, and she has worked as a public defender. She would be, by the way, the first public defender ever to serve on the Supreme Court. So that's another historic first that she brings to the court. She's worked with the U.S. Sentencing Commission for several years, and so she has a really in-depth knowledge of the criminal justice system from those perspectives. So she brings just this sort of wealth of knowledge and experience to the court, to really well-rounded person.
Throughout this week's confirmation hearings, the Republican senators, they have had a colorful line of question, to put it simply, questioning this week. So what were your thoughts on their strategy during these confirmation hearings?
Well, frankly, it was hard for them to find anything to criticize about Judge Jackson. I mean, she's, as we just said, she's just so incredibly well qualified, and she has a very strong record as a judge of being very impartial and just doing a wonderful job. She was, just a couple of years ago, she was confirmed to the DC Circuit, which is sort of like the court just below the Supreme Court, with a bipartisan vote. So really, they really had to search through her record to try to find something that they would criticize her about. And what they found was a few cases in which she gave lower sentences to criminal defendants than was suggested by the prosecutor. But as she explained in her answers, she was following the federal sentencing guidelines, which she knows better than just about anyone, having served the time on the Federal Sentencing Commission. So, I mean, it's a lot of it, right, Jaden? I hate to say this, but it's a lot about politics, right? It's just about, trying to, I think, speak to their constituents in saying that they were challenging this nominee, because Justice Jackson, future Justice Jackson, was nominated by a Democratic president, right?
How do you think Americans are looking at this, and what would you say have been their thoughts on seeing this whole thing play out?
Well, I will admit that I haven't been following the polls. I don't know exactly what the polls are showing. I know that there are many people that are very, very excited about her being nominated for all the historic reasons that we mentioned, and frankly, just because she's very impressive, and she's come across very well in these grilling. On Tuesday, they were questioning her for, I think, over 12 hours. I don't understand why they had to do that to her. I don't actually understand why that did, but that she came across very well. So I think she is doing a really good job in the hearings. I expect that whatever polls are taken will show a very high level of approval for her. in our country today, we're so polarized, unfortunately, and so politically polarized. There will be people who oppose her and have a negative opinion of her. But I think that, in general, a lot of people are really excited. She's doing really well.
What are some significant Supreme Court cases we should keep our eyes on in the coming days, weeks, and months?
Well, the biggest case that I'm keeping my eyes on is the Dobbs case from Mississippi, which is about a woman's right to choose an abortion. And the state of Mississippi enacted a law that would prohibit abortions at such an early stage that the only way a court could uphold that law would be to overturn the Supreme Court case of Roe versus Wade, in which the court had held that a woman has a right to choose an abortion. And many sort of court watchers, myself included, predict that the court will use that case to overturn Roe versus Wade. So I think that's going to be the big blockbuster case that comes down this summer. There's also a case involving a challenge to affirmative action program at Harvard University. And it's very likely that the court is going to find the program unconstitutional. This is a little more complicated, but just to say that the court has been very, very skeptical of any race-based affirmative action plans or any plans that even take race into account in any way, and has been sort of skirting it's likely that they will issue a decision holding that universities cannot take race into account at all in admissions. And that would be a huge, I think personally, a huge blow to racial justice. I think affirmative action, regrettably, with the history of discrimination against African Americans and other people of color in this country, we need affirmative action programs. But most court watchers think the court's going to also strike that down. So I'd say that's probably the other big profile case that will likely, that's the likely ruling this summer. Mm-hmm. And those cases will probably come down in June because they'll be the most controversial, and the court saves the most controversial cases for last.
My thanks to Professor Zietlow. That's all for this week's Community Focus. Have a restful Sunday.